afternoon and namaste to my audience. It is indeed a privilege and an honor to be here today. I am from South Africa, as I was introduced, and I think for me to be on this panel gives me a lot of perspective in terms of women empowerment, and the topic itself is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think my fellow panelists will also give you a bit more insight and unpack the topic to an extent which will give you more ideas of where we've come from, where we are at the moment, and where we are going. So let me introduce you to my panel. This afternoon on my panel, I have Almas Shivani. Is she here? I have Smitha Gupta. She's a Senior Director in Regional Marketing. Apple Allison, Founder and Chief Empowering Officer. Rakhi Deshpande, who's the Director of Talent Acquisition. Iris van der Venten, who is a change agent. Methel Renuka, who is the Managing Editor of Forbes Africa and Forbes Women Africa. Welcome, ladies. The To Me movement has grown quite a bit in recent years. As social media has demonstrated, the widespread prevalence of sexual assault and harassment in the workplace. Today, it is our intention to connect with women from all over the world on this platform specifically to hear their opinions on the topic at hand. The hashtag #MeToo movement has taken the world by storm and has grown quite a bit in the last year. So to my panelists, how do you feel about the state of the movement today? Remember, due to time restraints, you're allowed 1 minute each to share your viewpoints based on your country limitations and your stance in respect to the concept in your workplace. Okay, can I start with you, Renuka?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this very important subject. I do believe that the Me Too movement just actually shows the power of the collective, what can be done if women come together. But again, there should be some kind of resolution. I'm the managing editor of Forbes Africa. It's a Pan-African magazine. I'm also the editor for Forbes Women Africa. So in the last 5 years, I've been very fortunate to profile a number of female entrepreneurs on the continent, on the African continent. And in hearing their professional success stories, I've also heard so much about their personal stories. And, you know, it's just amazing, you know, what strikes as a common thread. And I've worked in different geographies around the world, in Southeast Asia and India, I'm an Indian, and the Middle East and now Africa. There's a common narrative with all these women. And it does not matter whether you live in London or in New York or in Mumbai. They all have the same stories and it's very cliche to say breaking the glass ceiling. In doing that, the kind of adversities that they've faced in their professional and personal lives. And I think this is about time. It was time that this hashtag becoming a movement, it was about time. But again, we fought for the last 100 years to, the first, it's been 100 years since women started voting, but the World Economic Forum says another 100 years before we achieve gender parity in the world. So I think it's movements like this that will reiterate the narrative, and it is so very important that we keep talking. These conversations are very important, and so are these platforms.
Thank you for that.
Hi, I'm Rakhi. I think we are touching a very, I would say, sensitive as well as a very critical topic when we're talking about Me Too. Me Too to me and its perception is, as Elizabeth just now mentioned, is collecting the critical mass of experience, right? We are, as women, as a gender, as a community, we are collecting a critical mass of sharing experiences, sharing how to fight with it, and sharing what to do to eliminate it from our lives, our our professions, our work. So I think where it's leading, it's going to lead to a lot of changes. We're seeing the impact of Me Too happening to a very large level. Another impactful movement, I would say, was the Lean In movement. That really made a lot of difference a few years back, and it still continues to make that difference for a lot of women. Again, getting that critical mass together to convey our message, to make an impact, to take our message ahead. There are a lot of countries that are now coming up with very specific laws, very specific policies. There are a lot of actions that have happened. There are clubs that got closed down. There are legal litigations that were filed. So we are seeing that impact. And I think, as Renuka said, it's a long way for us to go. But I'm sure we've started in a positive manner in terms of going towards what we want to achieve.
I think from my end, the future of Me Too to be able to be a sustainable campaign, it should be inclusive. It's not about our sexes, it's not about our gender, but it's about always choosing the most loving option. I'm here because I've witnessed some personal people that have been, abused in different ways. Some of my friends working with the most vulnerable sector of the society, and we've conducted crisis debriefing and so many things. But more than anything, Me Too is about being able to relate to whatever crisis they're going through. It's not anymore about sexual abuses, but more than what's really happening is the unspoken abuses, the emotional abuse that all women might be encountering, the domestic things that we are not witnessing in the public area. So the future, again, of Me Too movement is all about choosing the most loving option for us to be ordered to gap whatever there is, to live in light and love.
Thank you for that. Can we hear your opinion?
Yes. First of all, I think everyone, it's my own personal mission that every time I go out all over the world to speak, I try to encourage women to summon up the courage to speak about the atrocities or the brutalities or any form of abuses they may go on. But the fact is, before even you start talking about the Me Too movement, I would like all of you to learn the deeper meaning of what does the Me Too movement mean. एक थप्पड़ मारा, Me Too हो गया? नहीं. थप्पड़ में Me Too नहीं हो जाता. थप्पड़ means slap for those who don't understand. Est-ce que vous parlez français? Il y a beaucoup de gens qui parlent français. Je vais parler français avec vous. Oui, deux personnes seulement. OK. Hindi बोलने का तो नहीं आएगा. Is it okay, English?
English is fine.
No, because I have a different thing to show you, to share with you. Ever since the outcry from the social media, that's when the Me Too movement was introduced. Now, that encouraged only few percent. We would say under 1 to 5% ratio. Forbes might be able to confirm that. Not many women have the courage to speak about the sexual abuse or any form of abuse that's going through. So what I encourage everyone, that there are two names. It's called stress and anxiety. Every woman go through at workplace if they are being subjected to so-called the Me Too movement. That stress and anxiety is called their cousins, and that cousin's name is fear. So if you're able to overcome that particular fear from your stomach, everyone has fear of failure, fear of success. If you're able to overcome that and summon up the courage to speak about the Me Too movement, without being shy that everybody will know that I'm being sexually abused at workplace, or they call it casting couch in India, which is, I don't know if it's true or not, but summon up the courage because you're encouraging other women to follow suit. If you want to stop the abuse, if you want to put the end to this Me Too era, everyone has to come out and speak the truth and speak up. Do not have any form of fear.
I agree with many points that have been stated earlier. So my name is Iris. I'm from Belgium. I'd like just to take one step back. I think the Me Too movement is indeed, it's a movement. It's a movement because transformation is happening. And I think it's also a unique momentum in history in general because we have the 2030 agenda and we have these 17 sustainable development goals and indeed goal 5, gender equality. We can really shape up shape up and accelerate. But that will require a complete different kind of partnership, and that will require a different kind of mindset, attitude, behavior, legislation, to look at, what are the barriers of entry to market for women? How can you create a culture in an organization with leadership, with purpose, where women can grow? It's about making these right choices. So I'm a bit sometimes careful. I don't want to go too much in that discussion, because I like really what you say, because it's a broader discussion on diversity and inclusion, and it's a responsibility of all men and women.
Thank you very much for that. I think the topic itself is very controversial in a lot of ways, and it's your perspective, like each one sitting in the room here have a different perspective of what the topic actually means to you, be it in your workplace, actually in your space. So whichever space you find yourself, that's where you would need to put yourself in a situation where you can understand. Some critics have insinuated or plainly stated that the movement has lost its way or have been diluted, even comparing it to a witch hunt. What would your response be to this criticism? Can I ask Rocky?
Yes, it could be said that, we're following one thing when we say it's a witch hunt. It's like going behind a certain target audience, certain experience audience, I would say, more than target audience. So going behind a certain experience that we are talking about. But as a matter of fact, I completely agree that we don't talk about these things. As women, a forum to not be judged and still share experiences is what really matters. And I think Me Too provided that kind of a forum where women were not judged, women were not pointed at for sharing an unpleasant experience. And I don't think it has, it is a witch hunt. It is a very, very legitimate fear and experience like we saw. It is something that will give you pain in your heart, right? And absolutely, we are, as I said, building the critical mass when we're talking about Me Too again and again, over and over, till it actually creates impact that we all can feel.
Okay, so we are here with that Me Too movement. Where to from here?
Since we are in India, and most of women in India may be aware of the fact that a couple of women summoned up the courage to talk about the Me Too movement. What happened? The accused and all other men ganged up on her and they shut her up. And what are we doing? We are doing nothing about it. We, as women, I would say in India, let's create a new hashtag. Say, we too. So let's stand up together. Why are we not supporting that woman who has been, victimized? She summoned up the courage on behalf of the women of India, and yet we are not supporting her because we are too scared. Hamara naam bigdega, hamara reputation bigdega. Our name will be spoiled, our reputation will be jeopardized. Why? Do you want to continue staying in that kind of a relationship, or whatever form of abuses they are going through at workplace? Support each other. Make a team. We are one. We are here to empower ourselves. We are here to introduce equality, to make sure that we exercise our rights. But you are suppressing your own human rights. You are not supporting your fellow sisters. Some of the women are taking the steps. So now let's talk about we too instead of me too. And the last hashtag, I would say, now what?
Well, I think we all know that women's rights are human rights, and that's fundamental. Let there be no discussion. I think it's important for everyone to take responsibility, and I don't want to repeat myself, but if you look at any organization or any government institution, you look at the sphere of influence and what can you do to really find solutions. And solutions will only happen if we work better together, if we share more information, if we analyze data. Where are we today and what are we going to do about it? So I have a slightly different opinion. I don't think we should add more hashtags. On the contrary, I just think we should start doing things and have real actions on the ground, but also, look at where, what are we doing right and what are we not doing right, and how can we accelerate efforts to build that 2030 agenda, because we are now 2019, so we don't have so much time.
I think from my end, it's all about embracing our vulnerabilities, because for most of the time, we as women leaders, we keep on saying we must be strong, we must be the superwoman, but we often forgot to embrace our tears. So let's turn our tears into triumphs, and let's turn our struggles into successes that does not only empower women, but really embraces all our vulnerabilities.
Where to from here? My answer would be, I think we should stop having monologues. If you look at this panel, it's all women. It's always good to include the male voice as well. And you'd say that typically in a patriarchal society, the problems we endure is because of the men. But there are also, let's also recognize the good men out there, the men who also sponsor women. My mentor is a man. So I'm very proud of the fact that, and because they've had a head start in business, men typically have had a head start in business, politics, or even history. Let's use their networks. Let's go with them. Let's find the good male sponsors. I think it's important that male gender activists and male gender advocates are also recognized, and get them in on this movement. And if you see all the Me Too movements, you've also had men joining in, supporting the women. So I think that it's about time that we had a dialogue, because we're half of the population in the world, the men are half of the population. Let's engage and do this together.
Thank you for that. I think at this stage, we'd like to open the floor for Q&A. Is there anybody that likes to pose any question to the audience, to my panelists?
Thank you very much. My name is B. Thanks for your inputs. Mine is not a direct question, but I think it's something that I challenge the panel members to respond to. There's always a talk about women empowerment. And in this day and age and the generation that we are breeding, our girls and boys, they go to the same schools, and you never hear about women empowerment. Why do we always continue? Because I think this puts us in a back foot to say there's always something that needs to be done for us to be able to lead or succeed. And that's not the same message that is being sent to the up-and-coming young men. Thanks.
I think that's such a relevant point, and that's why I was also referring about, the whole hashtag, etc. I think it was very good, to create this awareness and maybe look at some issues, but at the end of the day, we need to see that communities thrive, and that's about men, women, children, and education is critical in that. So I think very much we should go to a more neutral space, but that history has proven that takes a lot of time. But we could start by ourselves, by being a leading example.
Anybody else that would like to add to that comment?
That's a very relevant question, thank you. I do think that these stereotypes start in school. Boys wear blue and girls wear pink. If you look at history, actually boys started wearing pink, and it was reversed as time came by. But I think these stereotypes, so you need to educate children from that level. It starts from the grassroots, and tell them that these stereotypes don't exist. I think it should start from that level.
Is it not just a mindset? Is that exactly what it is?
I think it's more also on our cultures, cultures that have come through centuries together. So mindset is something we can say now, probably, but this is very much engraved in our cultures. In different societies, in different manners, I wouldn't say they're the same. I think that is a cultural change, and it will take a couple of generations, now that we have started, to actually get this cultural change to kids, right? And start from there, how you treat the boys and girls in your homes. Are you giving them equal responsibilities? Are you asking them to do the same tasks? Are you giving them equal free time, right? And are you giving them making them equally responsible for things that they do?
Thank you for that. I think we've come to the end of our time, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me on this panel. It's been an amazing debate. I think a lot has been spoken about and reached to at this point, but I still believe we have a long way to go. I thank you.